Hi, I'm Dr. Christina Pabers, and I'm a traditional herbal medicine doctor. I also practice acupuncture and traditional Chinese medicine in general. But today I'd like to talk about herbal medicine. And one of the things that's been on my mind for a long time is the difference between traditional herbal medicine, where we're often utilizing the best of science, and also the methods that our ancestors used around the world of analyzing herbs as well as the individual and the disease or malady that the individual has based on um, the power of observation and educated observation. And by doing this, you can make a more sophisticated recommendation than when you're only using scientific understanding of herbs. So a lot of practitioners study herbs, and I think it's great. I think it's actually really such an adjunct to the use of pharmaceuticals. And in a lot of cases, one cannot even use certain pharmaceuticals and just use nutrition and herbal medicine. So I am very pro the use of functional medicine, which is often a very science-based, evidence-based way to apply herbal medicine and to look at human beings and what they're going through. But in traditional herbal medicine, there's something that is applied that's very different. And it employs the use of herbs and the we could call it proto-science, which is how practitioners for generations and even thousands of years people have been able to, without the use of lab tests and without a microscope and all of the modern scientific technologies, they were able to figure out what an herb does. And it wasn't purely just by um, trial and error. It wasn't. They actually had real kind of proto-scientific methods of understanding what they do. And it was largely based on senses. And when you're not bombarded by a lot of chemicals in our diet that are designed to actually trick your senses become very keen, and the way something tastes and the way something looks. Um, and then, yes, some trial and error and looking at what their ancestors did. So we're still standing on the shoulders of all of the practitioners before us. By doing all of that, one can actually take a whole pharmacy of herbs and choose which ones would be the best to use for an individual. And each individual who has, for example, the same malady like joint pain, um, and maybe it's even joint pain with inflammation, each individual might actually thrive with certain herbs as opposed to another herb, even though there might be 10 different herbs in the pharmacy that are good for inflammation or infection or whatever the problem is. And the way um, all of our ancestors around the world were able to employ a very sophisticated method of working with herbs was because they could actually say, well, for somebody at this age who's maybe menopausal, or maybe all of the people are menopausal, but they all have joint pain, but they still may all thrive with a different set of herbs because of how the person's constitution is, um, allowed for a big quality, um, a, that's not the right word. It allowed for a person to be very specialized in what they chose. And one thing I see nowadays is people using a very small set of herbs for the same thing for everybody, like turmeric, for example. And everybody gets turmeric and ginger or, one set of herbs. And if, because it's all for inflammation, but For some people, turmeric might not be the best herb for them because maybe it's a little too warming and the person's menopausal, and maybe it's a little too drying, or it thins the blood too much, and that person needs something that's a little more nourishing to the tissues, and or maybe they do need turmeric, but they need an herb, a set of herbs that are going to strengthen the tissue while also working, to reduce inflammation. And so there's really um, the art of herbal medicine that traditional herbal medicines employ that often the science just can't really identify. And that's the herbal medicine that really excites me. Um, Even though I do make use of the word of herbal of the science. And the really amazing thing about this is that with some education, anybody can do it. And these are some of the things that communities understood, and it's affordable. You don't have to always use super expensive lab work in order to know how herbs should be used. And that's why traditional Chinese medicine is so amazing, because it's thousands of years of development, of the use of the practitioner's senses, true observation, and understanding the categories of how to look at somebody and the correspondences of different herbs and the qualities that they possess to then put together a formulation or a treatment protocol. And while we're developing the science of herbs and nutrition, which is amazing, again, I'm not criticizing that. I don't want to forget, and I want to make sure that it's part of the conversation that we are also remembering what our ancestors did. And the science wouldn't even be there if our ancestors didn't have that capacity to keep us alive and healthy as much as they did, so that we're all here because somebody healed somebody of their sickness or their injury that allowed our genetics to still exist today. Let's not forget that. And also remembering that to study herbs is to study and appreciate the history of humanity. And no matter where you come from, that those traditions, which are surprisingly very similar, um, existed. And so another passion of mine is to look at the traditions of herbal medicine from different places, even though my specialty was in Chinese medicine. And then, because I live in the West, Western herbal medicine has been huge for me. But Ayurveda from India, the herbal medicine of Mexico and South America is so rich and sophisticated, and in Africa and in Scandinavia and in Greece and the Mediterranean and the Middle East. And they were all really powerful, sophisticated doctors. It just looked different from the way it does today. And there are still many things that it offers that science doesn't offer. And so I want to bring that conversation to the table and keep talking about it. And I hope that all of the other practitioners who think the way I do can also, have their voices elevated, because a lot of them are talking about it right now too. So anyway, I will be doing a series of experiential and educational workshops on herbal medicine, and as often as I can. This next one that's coming up is actually going to be this Tuesday, September 30th at Malone's Metaphysical. And the information will be down there, but I'll be keep looking, because I'll be doing more. So thank you. I hope you're doing so well, and may you be well.